Okay, my friends, sometimes you just don't know how to start, what to do, but we're going to be looking at all of the ancient history, the texts, all of them. And the Gnostics, which is gnosis in the Greek, means knowledge. And there's things in here that were written and tucked away long, long ago called the Nag Hammadi text. And they were discovered in 1945. So they had been buried possibly since Jesus Christ was actually walking on the planet, because they are the secret sayings of Jesus. And there's another one, the secret book of John, that talks about how humans were literally constructed. I mean, they gave the name of the guy that built the toes and the guy that built the ankle, and I mean, it's unbelievable stuff. And now, like I said, it was buried long ago, and hasn't been out of the ground since 1945. So it's not something that's been altered and played around with. It was written way back then, and now we are reading it, and it talks about these exact things that are happening today. It's just phenomenal. Jesus Christ said, "He who discovers the world discovers a corpse. He who discovers the world discovers a body." He also says, if they ask you where you came from, tell them we come from the light. We come from the place where the light comes out of its own accord. Where's that at? From the sun. No, nothing else happens. It just shoots these light out. Is that God? I don't know. I'm trying to understand these, because there's Pistis Sophia, who apparently started this realm that we live in, and she shouldn't have. She did something. She should have had a partner, and she didn't have a partner, so it went way out of balance. Everything was screwed up. The creatures were just monsters, and Yaldabaoth was the god that was in control, and apparently wasn't a good god. I don't know. We need to go through these things. We need to look at them together. And but these are the Gnostic texts. Now, I'm going to bring the camera up here. I'm just going to give you a brief history of, a description of what it's all about. What is Gnosis, and who came up with it? The Greeks came up with it, and why did they come up with it? It was written. Well, let's get into the text. Let's look what they have to say. Okay, my friends, deep subject again today. We are going back to the earliest texts that talk about the development of humanity. Now, I have been, specifically, we're going to be talking about the Gnostic texts. Gnostic is a Greek word meaning knowledge. And I have been looking into this, fairly deeply. And primarily the Gospel of Thomas, who was doubting Thomas, who was Jesus' scribe, wrote down all of his sayings, the secret sayings of Jesus, 114 of them. They were buried in the ground long ago and just dug up in 1945. And this is some serious discussion about actually how human beings were literally constructed, how they built the joints and the fingers and the toes, and how they literally built the human body. And it's called the Secret Book of John. And it's serious. It's pretty damn serious. Okay, this is what I'm referring to. In the Secret Book of John, also known as the Apocryphon of John, part of the Gnostic text, it's suggested that humans were constructed or created by divine beings, often referred to as angels or archons in that text. Well, they didn't suggest it. They told you exactly how they bolted everything together. I mean, it's a construction manual. It's unbelievable. It's the Secret Book of John, Gnostic Gospel, part of the Nag Hammadi collection. discovered in 1945. The text is an important example of Gnostic cosmology and mythology. It presents an alternative creation story. I guess so. All right, I just want to make one statement that the Gnostic texts and the book of Jubilees and Enoch, writing about giants miles tall and all these crazy, crazy things. Giants, monsters, dragons taller than the mountains. The Bible is just a cleaned up version of this stuff. This, they didn't clean it up, so they threw it out. They said, don't put this stuff in with our religious text because the people are never going to believe it. And I understand that. So they threw all these things out, and they had to hide them so that they would be preserved, because otherwise everybody was brainwashed. Now, everybody says, oh, you got to read the King James Bible. That's the only one. Don't show these things, but don't look at the stuff. It'll confuse your mind. Well, maybe. But this stuff was written in the BC and early era, common era. The King James Bible, I think, was written in, it was like, it first published in 1611. Now, what happened there when he published it, the King James Bible, he get everybody to get as much information as you can. Well, what are they sorting through? They're sorting through what they've been handed down. What have they been handed down? The cleaned up text. But if you look back and you just read the book, just think 1 second when you see what was there in the beginning. Chaos. What does that mean? Chaos, who knows? There were giants in the earth in those days, which means these are the giants that are the earth. These are the titans. There was giants in the earth in those days, and then after that there was more giants when the sons of God went into the daughters of man, and they had more giants. Those were the ones Enoch talked about. Prior to that, a 2-3 mile tall giant was an infant. These things were hundreds and hundreds of miles, and dragons and monsters of every type, it looks like to me. Scorpzilla, all these kind of crazy things. Quetzalcoatl, they make up the earth. It's the most bizarre set of circumstances that anybody could possibly imagine, but the evidence appears to support these statements I'm making. And if anybody can go against that evidence on Google Earth, which either I just showed you or I will show you, Quetzalcoatl, Typhon, Quetzalcoatl, all these things, Scorpzilla, I've shown them a million times. So what we need to do is read the Nag Hammadi texts in a little bit of detail, because they're tough to read. They are tough. It's a collection of 13 books. They contain over 50 texts discovered in Upper Egypt in 1945, right after World War II. This is an interesting coincidence. And so was the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are the same thing. They could change everything. All right, so it was this immensely important discovery includes a large number of primary Gnostic Gospels. These texts, once thought to have been entirely destroyed during the early Christian struggle to define orthodoxy. See, that's why they were hidden and buried. They knew they were so important. Scriptures such as the Gospel of Thomas, those are the words right from Jesus' mouth. It says 114 sayings, and they are almost impossible to interpret. I've talked about them. We'll talk about them again. The Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Truth, the discovery and translation of Nag Hammadi Library, initially completed in 1970s, to provide an impetus to a major reevaluation of early Christian history and the nature of Gnosticism. The people that believe in the King James Version of the Bible seems to be the most, don't read any of that stuff, you're going to be in trouble. Oh, you're trying to break people's minds and stuff. They get upset. Jesus says, well, of course he says in these texts, he says, Seek until you find. Don't stop seeking. And when you find, you're going to be upset. You're going to be disturbed. And then you will marvel. That's in the Gospel of Thomas. And we're going to look into all this. And then he talks about other things, that the world is a corpse. Yes, it's true. We are made of light. Yes, that's true. All these things I can just show you for a fact is true. For an introduction to the Nag Hammadi discovery and text in this ancient library, this is the library they created so that we don't lose these things. An introduction to this text, a Nag Hammadi discovery, and a text in this ancient library will offer several resources. First, read an excerpt from Elaine Pagel's excellent popular introduction to the Nag Hammadi text, the Gnostic Gospels. Then, for an overview of the Gnostic scriptures and a discussion of ancient Gnosticism, read this excerpt from Dr. Marvin so-and-so. Now, let's just cut right to the chase here. What are we going to be looking at? The texts. What texts are they? They're all about these Gnostic beliefs. This is an overview. A quick overview, because we got a lot of research to do. And this is going to get confusing. It's turning into a ramble all the time. There's no other way to do this. Here's the overview. All right. When analyzed according to subject matter, there are roughly 6 separate major categories of writings collected in the Nag Hammadi codices. Categories. Writings of creative and redemptive mythology. Well, they call it mythology. Well, they're talking about the Apocryphon of John, which in the hypostasis of the archons, they're the ones that built human beings. On the origin of the world, the apocalypse of Adam, paraphrase of Shem. For an in-depth discussion of these, see the archive. So they have an archive of all this stuff. Then they go on to the observations and commentaries on diverse Gnostic themes, such as the nature of reality. What is really reality? Right now, I'm going to tell you right now, almost 100% of humanity has no idea of our past and what is real and what is not real. They have been indoctrinated to say, if I say this, I'm smart, and all that stuff is real. They haven't even looked. All right? The nature of the soul. What is the soul made out of? Is there anything? If you carry on after you die, the body obviously doesn't go with. Well, I don't think it goes with you. It stays here. Where do you go? Or do you go stay with that? I have no idea. Relationship of the soul to the world. Now, this is a Gospel of Truth, the treatise on the resurrection. This is so deep, it's just beyond belief. This is a liturgical and initiatory text. The discourse on the 8th and 9th, the prayer of thanksgiving, blah, 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 blah. The prayer of the Apostle Paul, the Gospel of Philip, writings dealing primarily with feminine deification, I guess, and spiritual principle, particularly with the divine Sophia. She's the one who created this whole thing, and she shouldn't have done it, is what they say. We have the thunder, the perfect mind, the thought of Noria, the Sophia of Jesus Christ, the exogenesis of the soul, writings pertaining to the lives and experiences of some of the apostles. They talk about their lives and so forth. Scriptures which contain sayings of Jesus as well as descriptions of incidents in his life. Book of Thomas, Apocryphon of James, Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Thomas. All right. It leaves a small number of scriptures of the Nag Hammadi library we called unclassifiable. They're just rambles. It also must be kept in mind that the passage of time and translation into languages very different from the original have rendered many of these scriptures abstruse in style. In other words, they might have meant that. Back then they meant, hey, that's dope, man. They didn't mean it was cool. They meant it was dope. So who knows? Some of them can be taken out of context. Anyway, some of them are difficult reading. Boy, you ain't lying about that. Especially for those readers not familiar with Gnostic imagery. It's not imagery. they're putting this in some kind of a flowery way of saying things, not necessarily. So if you're not familiar with Gnostic imagery, nomenclature, and the like, no. They spoke of truthful things about giants and monsters and dragons and all that stuff, in my mind. Now, lacunae are also present in most of these. That means there's gaps. Lacunae, why do you say that? There's some gaps present in most of these scriptures. In a few of the texts, extensive sections have been lost due to age, deterioration of the manuscripts. That's not unusual. Not unusual at all. The only ones that are new are ones like are from King James, but they were just rewritten not long ago. Anyway, these were the original texts. Now, the most readily comprehensible is undoubtedly the Gospel of Thomas. Whew. That is unbelievable. And it was in pretty good shape, and I guess they had several copies of it, so they're pretty confident all the things in it were what was meant. I don't know. So they say undoubtedly it's the most comprehensible, with the Gospel of Philip and a Gospel of Truth close seconds in order of easy comprehension. Thankfully, these texts were all very well preserved and have few missing pieces, lacunae. There are now several published editions of these translations of most of these scriptures available. All right, and they're all in here. They got them. They go right from top to bottom. And here's the audio lectures about the Nag Hammadi text. Christ, Gnosticism, Thomas and Philip, redemption, blah, 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 the sorrow of Sophia. These are all pretty long, 80 minutes, 75 minutes. So there's a lot to discuss about these Gnostic texts that have been really poo-pooed. They've been, don't read those. Don't, you know, the church will say that. Ask the people in the church, is it okay to look into this? Is it okay? What do you think about this stuff? And see what their response is. I look into everything. And if I'm told that I shouldn't look into something, I look into it much deeper than something that I'm told, oh yeah, well, whatever. You know, but I want to be able to discuss whatever is exposed and discovered. Looking into it's fine, but oh well. But to be able to discuss it and get some kind of response back and forth, I learn from that. I'm not doing it to put people down or to try to confuse you or make you not believe in God. This supports God and Jesus Christ more than anything that I found whatsoever. I was never even the tiniest bit religious or spiritual. Nobody ever showed me anything. I had no evidence whatsoever other than these silly little documents, scraps of paper that people were writing about things. Who knows? Certainly I couldn't say, yes, this is true. Now I can. Not necessarily these words, but I know about the dragon and I know about the giants, and all this stuff it's here and it's being tested now. It's not like it's not here, and new species and everything else. And that's exactly what it talks about in the Gnostics. And they actually constructed human beings. They built their feet, they built their hands, they built their shoulders, and where the muscles attached. And I mean, they talk about it's just stunning what's in these texts. So that's a prelude to where we're going with this. And they're going to be rambles more than, scriptured things. When I go through something, I sort of take it as it comes. So I don't really do a whole lot of forethought. But it's good that way. It turns into a ramble, but for me, I enjoy that. Because when I bump into something, I'm doing it honestly. I say, whoa, that doesn't make sense. And then I try to figure out what does make sense. Not according to what I want to make sense, but according to what really does make sense. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's just start right from the beginning. This is about emanations, divine emanations. They're like light spreading out through the universe and then basically slowing down and becoming less perfect as it moves out. What they're talking about is a metaphysical theory that the universe is created from a transcendent being, which is just one God, the Moad, the Godhead. The theory is often compared to water flowing from a spring or light radiating from a luminous body. And it is light which is radiating from luminous bodies. Now, the sun, in our case, is the light that fills our solar system and creates all life. All life in this solar system is created from particles of light. Light is atomic vapor. It condenses together to make everything there is, including creatures, bodies, eyeballs, everything. So it is water flowing from a spring outwards. Now listen to this. This is very cool to listen to. Emanationism, a cosmological theory. All things come from an underlying reality or principle, such as the Godhead or the absolute God. Emanationism is often opposed to creation, as it suggests that everything has always existed and was not created from nothing. If it always existed, where did it come from? Nothing exists that didn't come from something else that I can tell of in my world. Now, we know it's all here. It had to come from somewhere. Was it all just here, or did it somehow become created? Nobody can answer that. There's nobody on the face of the planet ever in history could answer that. So we know it's here. What else can we tell about it? So we don't know whether it was existed forever or it was created at some point in time. Now, the process of emanation is atemporal, and the ultimate source remains undiminished. So, in other words, the God can make all kinds of other things, but he's still the perfect God. He doesn't get less and less weak. He's still perfect in every way, but he can make all kinds of things happen. And he becomes undiminished in his abilities. Beings that are emanated become progressively less perfect as they are further removed from the first principle, which is God. The further away you get from God, the less perfect you are, and the more likely you are going to end up in big trouble. Now, don't forget, we're talking about divine emanation. It says the source of all of this material, the first source from which everything flows, remains unchanged, and its perfection is neither lessened nor exhausted. It never runs out of energy. Now they have the Kabbalah. In the Kabbalah, the concept of worlds refers to the emanation of creative life force from the Godhead. The four worlds are Bira, Version, Ashnish, and Ashnush, whatever that is, which represent creation, formation, action, and emanation, respectively. So creation, you got material. Formation, you put it together and you make it work as a system. Action, you set it into operation. And emanation means it spreads out. The 10 Sifrot. The 10 Sifrot are a structure that represents the balance of divine mercy and justice. The right side represents unity, harmony, and benevolence, while the left side represents power and strict justice. That's pretty interesting. Okay, my friends, I did a ramble, and I want to set it up with this because it covered a lot of ground. But what I want to point out is the fact that the things that I've been talking about, these giant creatures, these ancient creatures, and the dragon in the desert and all that, they knew about this stuff long ago. There's the dragon right there. All right, this is in North Africa, right here, right where he's supposed to be. There's the dragon. There's the Red Sea. And the dragon's throat is cut right here where his throat is cut. Somebody knew about this. And this is the king of the world at that point. He was running the whole world. Mustafa, something like that. Now, over here, look at this. I found this interesting. This, I believe, is the Cape Verde Islands. And it came out, running out here, into here, and it piled up here, and then it sloughed off to the sides, which it does. This looks to me like it was Atlantis. It looks like a pretty advanced, happy looking place. Now, look over here. You got boats going in to here, to Atlantis. And then you have these little things here. Well, if this was the ocean, which at this point it's not, you can see an outline of the coast. So at this point it's not the ocean, and these are the principalities apparently, and this is, however, I believe this was Atlantis, and these were actually little islands right around Atlantis, because I believe I have found those. But I absolutely, certainly, no question whatsoever, found a dragon. And I'm surprised they don't show the fish down here, because the fish is just below the dragon where it was being attacked. So anyway, that's the map. This is from 1375, this map. And they had all kinds of annotations through here about who was doing what and where they lived, and pearl divers and this kind of that and so forth. And that's a dragon. That, my friends, it's identical. And then they show other ones. I'm seeing the other same patterns. They're showing things like that up here. This kind of pattern over here, same patterns over. Whether these are just division areas, I don't know. But I can tell you one thing, that is Typhon. All right, that I'm 100% certain. All right, these are the things to pay attention to. That's the fish being attacked by the dragon, spitting this stuff down on the fish's fin. The dragon runs all the way across North Africa, exactly what it showed in that map. And his throat is cut here. We'll see this in a moment. These are the Cape Verde Islands that shows that pile up just off the coast, and then they skirt around the edges, because all of this flowed out over the top of Atlantis. Remember I saw you with the tents and all the little gold balls over there? Now, there's also these other circles out here. You see that? Now, was this a support structure for Atlantis? What was going on here? Very similar to what you see on that map, these little circles out here. And there's a... that might have been one too. But anyway, at any rate, this is Atlantis. And this was the entrance from Atlantis into the Sahara Ocean, which now is a desert, because it all ran out over this area here. You see, instead of going over here, it ran around the edge, and it all just drained out into the ocean, and carrying with it all this mud. And Plato said they would never speak of mud again after this collapse. There's a fish. All right, that's his fin, his tail. I've shown this hundreds and hundreds of times. Still never a single word from the people that we trust to tell us the truth. Not a single word. What does that tell you? There is no truth there. There is no truth. And even with my 100% solid evidence, CAT scans, DNA tests, and everything, they cannot accept the truth because it overthrows their status and their ability to force you to say what they want you to say. Because it's quite obvious they're not telling you the truth. And they don't care about the truth. That's the key. That's what's annoying the hell out of me. Now, I'm doing this for the ones that haven't seen this before, but I'm sure there's very few that haven't seen it. But this is Typhon's head. And he has a red flared eye. His throat runs all the way down, and I mean all the way down. This is all dragon scales. And we're going to see this in a minute. This is all this flared, fluty looking hair and feathers or whatever they are. And it talks about this in Apollodorus. It says exactly his red flared eye. He was spitting stuff down at the fish, which is down below, and this is all coming out of him. and his throat was cut right down here by Zeus with his great and mighty sword. Remember what you're seeing here. Now here we go to a Google Earth. And we're going to come way up here to Typhon's head, which is what I just showed you. All of this is being spit down at that fish. There's his red, flared, flashy eye. This is all the stuff you see in the parades and stuff, this fluty looking stuff that runs down the side. This is his throat. This right here is his throat that runs all the way down. We're going to look at it in a second. These are the beards. That's the beards. They all have beards. And this is the source of the chemistry. You see that? It's coming out of the beard. I would have thought it would just flow right out of his throat, but it's not. That chemistry is coming out of the beard that creates this nasty, 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 nasty times a million stuff that flows down and hits the back of the fish. Right here. All of that is coming down, and that is about as bad as it gets, that stuff. As you can see, it's not hard to see how nasty it is. All right, look at that. That is some ugly, ugly stuff. You do not want to get that on you. And that's what happened to the fish. He was attacked by this flow of venom. And it literally ate through the scales on his back. This was his back right here. This is just fin. All right, you see it? That's just his fins. All right, the fish goes here all the way around. His tail runs up here, down around here. This is all fin down here. This is all fins here. I think it's a flatfish, and I think this is one eye, and I think this might be the other eye. Flatfish have two eyes on one side, and one of them's ugly looking, and one of them's kind of normal. Now, the dragon spit that stuff down on his back, ate through his vital flesh, right down to the blood vessels. You want to see some blood vessels? I can see more in this picture than a doctor can see in the best CAT scan and microscopic images that exist. I can see biology much, much clearer than they can. Because this, my friends, is nothing but blood vessels. The big red ones are arteries. The little feeders off them are blood vessels. They take the main support of blood and they divide it up and send it out to all the tissues. When it's all done at the very end, just before it goes into those black spots, is the capillaries, and they pinch the blood off. You see that? I can see that. Nobody else can see that. There's never been another human being on the face of the planet that's ever been able to see biology in this detail. Not only that, I can show you that toxin being tried to be removed by the body of this fish. And how is it done? It's done with lymph. And what does lymph do? Lymph picks up the garbage and carries it over to the lymph ducts. You think I can show you that? Well, yes, I can. All right, you saw the map where his throat was cut. It's right here. This is Typhon, once again. Before we get too deep in, and we're going to get deep, this is his throat. And these are the scales all the way down here that run down his throat. You see, these are dragon scales. This is the cavity of his throat. All right, this is the outside scales of his throat. They fit all the way down, all the way down, all the way down, and then see, they're like little plates. That way there his throat can twist and do all that stuff because they got little hinges all over. And it comes all the way down to where it was cut by Zeus and his great and mighty sword, which is right there. And that, my friends, is nothing but blood. That is the vein blood, and this is the artery blood running out from that gash across his throat. This stuff from here down is blood. Up here is just bodily fluids just washing away. as it decomposes in the desert. This is just nothing more than effluent. But there's this neck right up here. From down here, all this has nothing to do with him other than it's just his body flesh. And this is the whole entire drag. It's 1,200 miles long. Now, I said I could show you this immune system responding to this attack. These are lymph nodes, right? This stuff right here is the toxin. See it? Remember I showed you how nasty that stuff is? It's trying to break down through. And here is the lymph fluids. Nobody knows about this. Not a single doctor on the face of this planet understands this. This lymph fluid knows what to do. Somehow it ganged up together and says, we got a hell of a problem here. We got one hell of a serious problem. Get all your lymph guys over there and start to get that stuff out of here. It is going to kill us. How do they all get together and know to get over here at one time? That stuff doesn't flow like that. It's everywhere, but not like this. And it's grabbing all that stuff and it's dragging it over. So it grabs a hold of it and it drags it over down here through this flow. All right, it comes in and it tries to grab all of that green, nasty, nasty stuff. It brings it down here and it turns into a flow, and all of that nasty stuff is flowing down to all these lymph nodes at the same time, not just one. It's coming over here, flowing down to here, coming over, flowing down, coming over, flowing down, all the way down the lymph node branch. All the way down it's trying to. And they're all being killed. They're all dead. Every single one of them is black is dead. They're all dead because this thing killed her. And I'll show you this one. You see how it's coming in here? Bam! It hits that lymph node. And that is a lymph node. And here's all the nastiness coming in. And the clean stuff's supposed to come out. It's not. It's dead. It's coming out dead. It's supposed to come in this side and get all washed up and cleaned up and come out this side nice and clean. Well, you see what's coming out this side? Nothing. It's dead. Totally dead. Nothing coming out. On this side it comes in with all the nasty stuff, with the lymph. And the lymph is supposed to get cleaned up in here and then come back out this side nice and clean. It's gone. It's dead. Now you want to see the filters? Look. You see this? There's filters running all around this thing. See those filters? When this stuff comes in, it's supposed to filter out the big stuff and let it just wash away after a while. There's so much of it, it couldn't deal with it. Just couldn't deal with it. Just much, much, much too much. And no good stuff comes out the other side. And the same thing happens to all these lymph nodes right down the line. Same thing going on here. Look. See the attack through the... I'll show you in a second. It's got to sink in. But all of those all the filters are here. The same as they all have the filters. And that stuff is coming in. It's getting filtered away. But look here. This is the center. That shouldn't be black like that. It's dead. The lymph node is dead. It's supposed to go on through here and then come out this side nice and clean. Look, there's nothing here. It's dead. It's killed. And all the way down the line, same thing happened. Boom, 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 boom. It tried. It could not deal with that kind of a volume of attack. And this is exactly identical to what is written in Apollodorus. It was talking about Typhon, who was the biggest creature around, created by Gaia to attack the gods because of them killing her children who were the giants. And Typhon attacked the gods and they turned themselves into animals to try to hide. I'm not kidding you, that's what it says. And Ares turned into a fish, and this is Ares. Didn't quite make it out of town. They all tried to get away. So even the gods were scared of him. My friends, and hopefully this will be exposed very soon. Now I can see why Trump and Musk and all them haven't jumped up yet and said, yeah, we gotta jump on this stuff. Well, hopefully RFK wants to get in on the understanding of the enzymes and the bacteria that are in the body. All of this stuff I started by mud fossils. Nobody would even know about the interstitium if I hadn't written the paper in 2015 about this fluid-filled layer. And most of the doctors still don't even know about it. In 2018, they said, yeah, this thing exists, and it's the biggest organ in the human body now. They never even knew it. And there's still other things they don't know now about the chemistry and the biology of the human body that I do know. And it's about cancer, it's about autism, it's about Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, it's about all those things are invasion of tissues. And I can see these things happen in mud fossils. They cannot see it. I can see it. This is where it gets frustrating, because everybody says, oh, here he goes again, oh, big shot. No, I just want it to be talked about. I don't want to be a big shot. I couldn't care less about that. If I did, I would be touting, oh, yeah, we know everything. Well, you could spot that stuff and people just jump right on board. Oh, boy, what a genius he is. He can say the same thing everybody else says. Well, I could, but it would be wrong. All right, I love you. I just can't go on with this. What do I do?